Welcome to Game of Roses. I'm Chad Colchin. As many of you in the nation know, some of the biggest news that has happened in the past couple of weeks is the shocking breakup between Bachelor Season 25 crown wearer Matt James and his ring winner of that season, Rachael Kirkconnell. There's a lot of conjecture about why the breakup happened. Did he cheat? Was she blindsided? Et cetera, et cetera. And for the most part, Rachael Kirkconnell has been kind of quiet about it. She's liked a few comments here and there to give us some indication of maybe what's going on. But she is now on Call Her Daddy, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, to tell her side of the story. I'm going to watch the whole thing right here, give my thoughts as we watch it. And if you want to join me, feel free. Here we go.
What is up, Daddy Gang? It is your founding father, Alex Cooper, with Call Her Daddy.
Rachael Kirkconnell, welcome to Call Her Daddy.
Thank you.
Obviously, you're going through a very, very public breakup right now. It's like not under the best circumstances that we're sitting down together.
How long does this thing do?
I think it was a shock to the world.
It's a premiere.
We're going to find out today if it was a shock to you, but just like overall, how are you doing right now?
It's different every day. I'm doing okay. I would say some days are better than others. Like one day,
Now, I'm very curious. She's never been on Call Her Daddy before. She's obviously going to get to, the breakup and everything that went down. But I'm very curious if there's going to be any general discourse here about Bachelor Season 25 and everything that happened to her on that season, the racism allegations, the skydiving incident. She was in a skydiving one-on-one date where she almost died, and they kind of cut out the severity of it from the show.
I'm like feeling kind of empowered. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it's okay. Like I'm excited to be on my own. And then the next day, I like can barely get out of bed, and I just miss him, and I'm sad about everything. So, yeah, just comes and goes. It's different every day.
I think that like why I especially want to talk to you today and what we're going to get into though is like even you just saying that is so relatable. Like probably everyone watching this
The kind of public nature of these breakups or any of these relationships really in Bachelor Nation or any reality TV show for that matter, I think is something that virtually no player is really prepared for when they come into the game. If you make it to the end of Bachelor, your whole life is going to get turned upside down by the Bachelor subreddit and all of the fans. Anything that's ever happened to you in your life, including for Rachael Kirkconnell, it was attending those antebellum balls. All that stuff's going to come out. And for at least the next couple of years, if you're in a relationship that started in the show, those fans are going to be watching everything you do. And if there's a breakup, they're going to want to know everything. That's literally why we're tuning into this. That's why we're watching Call Her Daddy right now, watching this interview.
has been through a breakup, and a breakup is like not linear where you're like one day like, oh my God, I'm perfect again. So like I appreciate you being honest because breakups are so emotionally devastating and hard, especially if you're the one getting broken up with. I obviously want to talk to you about everything that's happened, but first I do think it's kind of important we just kind of go back to like when you met Matt on The Bachelor. Why did you want to go on that show?
Oh my gosh. It's actually a funny story. I didn't want to go on the show.
Okay.
Did not sign myself up for the show. My friends nominated me, and they didn't tell me that they nominated me. I think they put
But then I got an initial casting call from a producer, and then I did another one, and then I did another one, and then I did another one, and then I decided to go on the show. It's like she says she didn't want to go on the show. You have so many opportunities to say, no, I'm not going to do this. She said, yes, I'm going to do this at every turn.
put in just some, filled out the online thing, and I got a call. I was grocery shopping. It was like middle of COVID. So I'm getting this call from a random LA number, and I'm like, that's so weird. Like, who's trying to reach out to me right now from LA? But I was grocery shopping, so didn't answer. Got a text from the same phone number. Didn't open the text. I was like, I thought it was like a job. I was applying for jobs everywhere. It was like one of those things where it was like, I don't think anyone knew what was going on in the world. So I just was seeing what.
Those calls and texts for me are always telemarketers trying to sell me solar panels for my roof.
Could happen. And so I thought it was a job getting back to me. And then I got a voicemail. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to call these people back if like they're actually, trying to set up an interview with me or something. So I get to my car and I immediately listen to the voicemail, and it's someone from The Bachelor saying they received an application from me. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a prank. I texted my friends. I'm like, who did this? Like, what's going on? So 3 of my friends started freaking out, and they were like, oh my gosh, we filled out an application for you like months ago. So it's real. You know, I didn't think it was an actual thing. And at first I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to be the villain, or I'm going to be like one of the crazy girls. I didn't know how it worked. So
Smart. She also comes from I believe I'm right in this. She comes from a sundown county or town that was on Oprah Winfrey back in the 80s for being one of the kind of most racist areas in the United States. So her instincts that the producers wanted to try and make her a villain, I think were correct. I think that's probably why they cast her on Matt James' season. And then obviously she won the ring.
I was like, I'm going to be, I don't know, just it's not going to go well for me. So at first I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That sounds crazy.
Smart.
And then I did have a call with them, and they were like, you know what, just go with the process and just see. Like, my friends were like, just see what they even want from you. Like, I just want to see the ins and outs. So I was like, okay. So I started doing interviews, and I still was like really nervous about it, really not feeling it, but it was COVID, and it was just like let's just see where this goes. Then they announced Matt in June, I think, as The Bachelor, and that's when I was like, wait, okay.
And his announcement was rushed. It was obviously during a time of great social and political upheaval in the United States of America. And he was meant to be, Matt James, a player in Bachelorette season 16. That was Claire Crawley's season that got fractured after she left with Dale Moss. Tayshia Adams came in to fill it out. So it had 2 Bachelorettes. But he was supposed to be a player on that season. Because there were outcries from Bachelor Nation to cast the first Black Bachelor, Matt James got yanked out of that season as a player and immediately announced just on their Instagram as your next Bachelor. He obviously had a great pedigree. He went to Wake Forest for college where he played football with someone you might remember from Hannah Brown's season 15 of The Bachelorette, Tyler Cameron. They were best friends. They had their whole thing called the Quarantine Crew during the pandemic. It was Tyler Cameron. It was Matt James. It was, I believe, Tyler Cameron's brother. It was Brown Bear Visuals. And eventually Hannah Brown, all holed up in a house in Florida making content during the pandemic.
He's very, very attractive. He seems like a great guy, and I would love to get to meet him.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, okay, actually this would be really fun if given the opportunity. And I don't think any of us found out. I think like 2 weeks before we had to fly out, we got like the okay if we were on the show or not. So I had 2 weeks to like decide if I wanted to.
In some cases, that's not enough time for players to, make arrangements with their place of work. It's not enough time to get clothes, et cetera, et cetera. And some players get told you're in, and then they're on their way to the airport and they get told you're out after having taken a month off work, potentially even had to quit their job because maybe a boss won't let them take time off.
To do it, get all my shit together, and
Wait, why do you think your friends applied you? Like, had you come out of a breakup? Were you chronically single? Like, what was your vibe?
I think at the time a lot of my friends were in relationships and I wasn't. And my friends loved the show. I don't know if they really watch so much now, but at the time loved The Bachelor. I think it just whose season? I think it was Pilot Pete's season, right?
Oh my God.
And it was a shit show.
It was. That was season 24. It was the last season shot before the pandemic. It aired that January and February. And then season 16 of The Bachelorette, that was Claire Crawley, who was the oldest Bachelorette at the time at age 40. That was going to shoot that next month. And then, of course, in March, early March, the pandemic hit. The lockdowns went into effect, and they had to postpone shooting of that Bachelorette season 16 for roughly 6 months.
It was great TV,
Yeah, it was.
So that was like peak Bachelor, I would say.
Oh my God.
So my friends were like,
peak Bachelor. I'm going to go with season 17. That is Goldini, Sean Lowe. That year had Sean Lowe marrying his ring winner in Catherine Giudice. They are still together. They still have kids. And it also had the Bachelorette that came out of his season, Desiree Siegfried, married her ring winner, and they are together with children as well. I would say, at least in terms of proving the premise, that was peak Bachelor. Maybe peak Bachelor in terms of spectacle, though, was actually Bachelor season 23, Colton Underwood, that had a 3-hour live premiere, which included such monumental moments as Chris Randone and Crystal Nielsen in a hot tub in the parking lot interviewing fans of the show.
We need to get one of our friends on the show. And I mean, it was like me and I think 2 other girls in our group were single, and they just were like, we need to apply Rachel. We think she'd be great.
Had you been in a serious relationship before The Bachelor?
Honestly, not like an adult, like serious relationship. I think my last relationship was a year before that. It was about 6 months. And it was with like one of my best friends growing up. We were just always like, you know, had feelings for each other. So we gave it a shot. And it just was one of those things where we probably should have just stayed friends.
Classic.
And it wasn't even him. It was just more so me. Like I was just going through a hard time or a weird time in my life. And I was like, I don't need to be in this relationship, especially with like one of my best friends. And now to this day, our relationship's weird, but
that's the worst when I have people write in all the time and they're like, should I go for my friend? And I'm like, my advice is just prepare that it will never be the same. So, but I also like commend you for like going for it, because then also then the other side is you always have the what if, like, would we have been perfect? So I guess like hearing that though, like, was there any part of you knowing how The Bachelor works that you were nervous at all that like this is something that ends in engagement after a couple weeks of knowing someone?
I think like it was one of those things where I couldn't even believe it was happening. Couldn't even believe that
I just want to interrupt here real quick. Most players who go into The Bachelor, at least in the contemporary game, I'm saying everything post probably season 13, maybe. That's kind of what we at Game of Roses called the modern era. Jason Mesnick kicked off that season. That's when the whole game, all the mechanics of it were in place. You had all the different types of limo exits, all the one-on-ones, the two-on-ones, the group dates, all the mechanics were there. Post that, I think most players go into the game assuming they are not going to win the ring. Therefore, they will not get engaged. Therefore, they will not get married to whoever the lead is. Most players come in saying, that might happen, and that would be great. But what I'm really doing this for is the experience, to get to fly around the world potentially and do all the things that you get to do in service of this reality TV show. And if I go far enough, I might get a little bit of fame out of it that I can now monetize in the, you know, the true professional era. We're talking like post Andy Dorfman, really, when Instagram came in and you started seeing influencers just getting minted out of the show if you made it to the top 4, or in some cases even the top 6. That Instagram kind of influence has tapered off a little bit in recent seasons, but still I think during Matt James' season, for sure, that's kind of the primary reason you're going in is, let me see how far I can make it in this. Let me see what kind of adventures I can go on. And if I wind up liking the guy and we get engaged, who knows? Like, that's a possibility, but I don't think anybody is going into Bachelor looking at it as like a viable way to really find your soulmate.
Kept making it through these interviews and that I got the call and that they actually wanted me on the show. I feel like, I don't know, I told myself like, I'm kind of boring. Like, I don't know if I would be good TV for this show. I guess I was confused why they wanted me on the show.
Yeah.
And so I think the whole time, even when I got there, I'll never forget walking, very first night, walking out of my hotel room and seeing one of the girls. She's so stunning, so perfect. Her name's Sarah. I saw her and I was like, I'm screwed. Like, all of these girls are so stunning, gorgeous, seem perfect. And I just was wondering like why I was there, really. And then it got to the point where I was like, well, I guess like I just hope I make it past this first night.
It's an interesting question to raise. A lot of players, when they first go into the game, have this exact same reaction. They see the other competition. How it works when you go into the game, you get sequestered basically in a hotel for 2 or 3 days where you don't get to come out of that room or see anyone without producers' permission. And the only people you're interacting with are producers. They're helping you try to figure out what your limo entrance is going to be, what you might do on that night one as far as a little mini date once you're all in the house, and then you're going to go play basketball with them in the driveway or whatever the case may be. In that time also, well, you've been cast to fit a role. They cast for villains, they cast for fools, they cast for front runners. But in those 2 or 3 days, they can start to see different things and maybe change that up. So I don't know what she was cast for initially, and she clearly doesn't either. She wound up being a front runner, but she might have been cast to be a villain, and then that changes. I think that's what happened to Devin Strader on Jen Tran's historic Bachelorette season 21, which just concluded, in the latter part of last year. They cast him to be a villain. He wound up winning. And when that stuff happens, it threatens to derail the entire proof of premise of this whole show. And I think it did with Rachael Kirkconnell as well.
So I guess I didn't really think too much about an engagement only because I didn't think I would ever get that far.
Smart.
I think that makes sense. And I think sometimes with The Bachelor too, like people would be like, so you weren't going in for an engagement? Like, I don't think anyone goes in with that headspace.
Correct.
I think it's kind of more your situation where you're like, I'm throwing myself into this situation. There's no way I'm going to end up at the end. And
well, there was like 40 girls on our season 2.
Right.
So I'm like, what are the odds out
Was
of
it
40 plus, or, 36 to 40 girls? Why would he pick me? I don't know.
I'm almost positive it was not 40. It was a lot, and they had Heather Martin also. If you remember during that season, Heather Martin tried to crash that season, and they made her come in and spin a pizza box on her head. I'm sure you'll remember. Let's see how many they had on Matt James's season. It was 38 plus Heather Martin. 37 plus Heather Martin. So 38. Close, but no cigar. Not quite 40. I was about to say 40, I don't think has ever happened. Has never happened.
I was like, there's just no way that out of all these women that he would be interested in me of all people.
What was your first impression, like in person, of Matt when you met him?
Tall.
I don't want to say like love at first sight, but definitely just like total infatuation, like right off the bat. I feel like we had a connection immediately. And it's funny though, because I'm sure all the girls say that when they first get in, like we clicked or we sparked or whatever. But I think he would agree with that we both just felt a connection immediately. And it felt very comfortable. And like we were just talking to each other like there weren't a million cameras and a million people around. We were talking about like Waffle House and, just stupid things that they probably were angry that we were chatting about because they're like, this is not good TV.
Right. They're like, let's
Yeah, I don't remember there ever being a scene about the Waffle House.
ramp it up, like either make out or get in a fight.
Yeah.
And you guys like, but Waffle
And that
House?
was like every conversation we had was just like, we were just talking about stupid stuff that wasn't good for TV. But to us, it was just natural, normal, fun, easy conversation.
And see, that idea that type of stuff is not good for TV has been browbeaten into these players' heads in The Bachelor for so long and so often that they now believe it, when in fact the opposite is true. Go watch season 6 of Love Island USA. They're talking about what their favorite candies are and how to catch snakes and shit. And it's riveting. It is those weird little conversations that help you get an understanding of how they're building the relationship, how their personalities work together. That actually is good TV. And at least in season 25, who knows what Grant Ellis' season is going to hold. Their night one was very good, which just aired this Monday. But I think the producers really need to get on board in the Bachelor franchise to keep these types of conversations, the Waffle House conversations, in the document, because it just gives you such a better idea of what that relationship is really like, what their interactions are like. And it seems less fake if you have those little moments.
Yeah, it's like the real shit in life. Like,
Exactly.
It's not going to be all glamour once you guys leave. You guys may be literally going to Waffle House, and like you'll want to be chilling.
The show is like, they're like, tell us your deepest, darkest secrets and your trauma, and it's like, I'm sure you'll get there eventually, but I'm not gonna like tell someone that 2 minutes into knowing them,
Right.
I guess, So
what was the moment that like really made you realize like, oh my God, I'm fully falling in love with this guy?
I think it was like
After I narrowly survived a skydiving accident and he rushed over to help me make sure I was okay.
right before our one-on-one. I didn't get a one-on-one until like the 5th week of filming. I was pretty late in the game to get a one-on-one. And I don't know, just like what little time we would have together, it was just so easy. And I hadn't like clicked or just sparked with someone like that maybe ever in my life, just like right off the bat, just like so into each other,
Wow.
And then it was definitely like solidified on our one-on-one. We spent the whole day together, and I was like, okay, I can really see myself with this person.
And she almost died in a skydiving accident. That needs to be addressed.
And you always have to ask yourself, like, is this is this just infatuation because we're in like this romantic setting and we're getting, all this incredible treatment, and you're literally in a fairy tale. So it's easy to fall in love or fall hard in that situation.
I mean, no pun intended. She fell very hard. So hard, in fact, in the skydiving accident that she bruised the entirety of one side of her face and had to apply massive amounts of makeup to hide it.
Even with all of that, like knowing that was in my head, thinking about it, I still felt like, no, this is real.
Yeah. Like you knew if we step outside of this, I still feel like no matter, if anything, like there's a chance you were excited to get out of that, to like live real life.
For sure.
Your guys
By the end, yes.
Right? Obviously your guys' season ended pretty unconventionally. You got the final rose, but Matt didn't propose. How did you feel about that decision?
So, like I said,
No, he didn't propose. He broke up with her on After the Final Rose due to the racism controversies. Are they going to cover that?
First engagement wasn't even in the back of my mind. Like I just wasn't even thinking that was ever something that would happen to me. But then I think when we finally told each other we were falling in love with each other on our one-on-one, I was like, all right,
Love level 3.
this could be a very big possibility now. So it's definitely something that I have to think about. But it was one of those things where it felt like it was out of my control because I wasn't the one handing out roses at the end of the day. So it was one of those things where I told myself, like, if we do make it to the end of this and he proposes to me, of course I would say yes. The proposals on The Bachelor are just interesting because I think you've seen plenty of couples. Re-propose and say, like, this is the actual engagement. And I'm not.
I mean, let's not forget the last season of Bachelor in Paradise where 3 couples proposed and then broke up their proposal. They ended the engagement like 2 business days after the airing of that episode, which they were contractually just obligated to stay together until it aired. The proposals in Bachelor, I mean, the main game is different. Obviously, I think those carry a little bit more weight, and players tend to at least stay together in those proposals for a couple of months, if not a year after, if they're going to break up. Bachelor in Paradise is like whatever, they just throw it away. But I agree with what she's saying here.
I'm not saying that the engagements aren't real on the show, but I think now, having been through it all, it would be so crazy to get engaged to someone you barely knew. Yeah. And you've only known each other for a few weeks. And so I was totally okay with that. We had a conversation off camera.
Okay.
About not getting engaged. I knew that was coming.
Okay.
I didn't know if
Okay, so that's breaking an NDA. That is a contract violation. If they wanted to, they could sue her right now. You can't talk about these things per the contract that she signed. That said, I don't think they're going to come after her or Matt James ever because of how poorly that season was handled and what it did to kind of destroy their relationship for a moment. And their lives to some degree. And also, they have distanced themselves from the franchise. They don't consider it to be a part of their lives. I don't think either one of them would ever come back in a kind of guest host capacity or even at a tell-all or an After the Final Rose to even sit in the audience.
Show would convince him that he needed to do it or that he realized he should do it. So I told myself, like, if it were to happen, I would say yes, but I didn't expect it to happen. Yeah.
So you were like fully on the same page. Like, it's okay if he doesn't propose. Like, if anything, you're having conversations off camera. And
So that is fascinating because it kind of undercuts all the drama they're trying to build up over the course of the season. The same is true in Love is Blind. We know, at least in Love is Blind UK, there was one couple, I forget their names now, but they did not do they didn't accept the wedding. They didn't say I do at the altar. And the guy came out and said they had previously discussed that and they were both cool with it, but the show made them act like it was happening in the moment. And so I can only assume Bachelor would do something similar.
Did he come to you and be like, hey, what was that conversation like?
So that was during Fantasy Suites. That's like the most time you get off camera. So we were just talking about what that final day would look like. And I think that we were both worried about production having like little tricks up their sleeve, which ended up, us not getting our final date.
I mean, and that also goes to show you, like, the show, the producers don't care about fostering the relationship, at least in season 25. Things may be different now. We saw what they did with Joey Grazia today, but then we also saw what they did with Jen Tran. It's like, I don't know where they fall. But you have the lead and his ring winner, which at that point he has told them she's going to be my ring winner or my final rose. And her main concern is, what tricks do the producers have up their sleeve? Not, oh my God, I can't wait, this is going to be the most beautiful moment of my life. It's, I know they're going to fuck me over somehow, and I have to be on guard. That kind of attitude can't exist in your player pool, at least not for your front runners. They have to believe they're protected, and they're going all the way through with this, and it's going to be the greatest moment in their life. And what you're hearing here for Rachael Kirkconnell is, that just wasn't the case. At least, again, in season 25, this was back in 2020. We don't know, what is going to come in these next seasons. So far, again, Grant Ellis's night one, I thought was fantastic.
And I remember Chris Harrison showing up to my door telling me that Matt's really confused and he doesn't want to see me. And at first I'm laughing because I'm like, this is so you guys. This is not him.
Yeah.
But then I have a meltdown because I'm like, well, whoever it is, I don't get my last date now. And
they did this to Pilot Pete too. As she talked about, it was a shit show. I'm sure you'll remember the scene where Chris Harrison comes in. They're in Australia. It's hot. There's flies everywhere. He had just talked to Madison Pruitt, and Chris Harrison comes in and is like, well, I don't know if Hannah Celeste is going to show up to the final rose ceremony. And Pilot Pete has a nervous breakdown. It's like, oh my God, because that's who he's going to choose. The producers know that. Here they were playing similar tricks on her.
And, we don't get like our last moment together before all of this ends. And now I'm going into this proposal feeling terrible and feeling very insecure and just weird about the whole thing. Like, it was a really heavy feeling on the day.
Brutal.
But I knew, as soon as he said he couldn't propose, it was one of those things where I was like, not disappointed, but I just was thinking like, okay, you're not proposing, but are we still going to be together? I guess I was like, what's true, what's not true? Are you about to break up with me? Are you about to leave? Like, are we about to not be together?
I also think players, even going into this game, knowing like, okay, we're not going to propose. We may actually fall in love and we might want to date outside of this, but we need to spend more time together if we can figure out, should we get married? Should we propose? Even if you have that conversation, as they did, I think the nature of the format of the show and being kind of immersed in this world where you don't have a cell phone and the producers are whispering shit in each other's ear and trying to get you to do this, trying to get you to do that. I think it comes down to a point where you're like, well, wait a minute. The point of this thing that I'm in is for this guy to propose to me. And if he doesn't, does that mean he's not really into me? He signed up to be the bachelor. He knew what that comes with, and he's not willing to do it. That means that he can't be that into me. I think all those things creep into your head as a player, especially if you're, a front runner. If you're in like the top 3 and you're not playing a game to get purposely eliminated in 3rd or 2nd place so that you might be the bachelorette, if you really are trying to get a relationship with this person, I think all those thoughts come into your mind and maybe cloud how you play.
Or do you still want to be with me? So then when he was like, I still want to be with you, I want to try this out in the real world, I was excited. But the rest of felt like they were literally breaking down the set as we were still doing like our final. They were done. They were like,
stop.
Waste of a seat. Yeah, they were just, I felt like a failure, like, because they didn't get an engagement.
God, that's so fascinating to hear her say that, because then if you go to the very next season of The Bachelor, season 26, Ultimate Viking Clayton Echard, we know how that ended in the rose ceremony from hell, where he had to, producers made him, by the way, tell Gabby Windey and Rachael Recchia, at least that's my estimation, made him tell Gabby Windey and Rachael Recchia at that rose ceremony from hell that he had been intimate with all of them. They break down crying. That, of course, gives us the cursed cruise season 19 of Bachelorette with 2 bachelorettes. But it also puts Clayton Echard in this awkward situation where he's going to give Susie Evans the final rose, which she rejects. And so do they consider that season a failure? Because from the beginning, it was on them. They introduced Clayton Echard by having him read mean tweets about himself on the after the final rose of the prior Bachelorette season. So I don't know if they considered it like a failure necessarily that they didn't get engaged. I think maybe they considered it a failure because there wasn't enough of a breakdown of the second place player. I don't know. It's interesting to hear her say that, though.
Engagement out of it.
I'm dying. They're literally breaking it down. They're like, fuck you guys. We
Yeah.
wanted him down on one knee.
Yeah.
But what I do like, I think a lot of people respect about that is like, we've all seen like people on social media now, and everything is like less romanticized as maybe it was back in the day because of social media, and we get kind of like glimpses behind the scene of like what actually reality TV is not so reality in moments. But I do think there was a level of respect maybe people had of like, wow, if anything, maybe that means he and her will actually work out, because they're literally going to do even more work off camera now, rather than we have seen couples be like, yay, and then they like don't even last 2 weeks past it. So I think that there was a sentiment of like, maybe he is more real for making that decision in the beginning.
Well, that's what I thought
Right.
at the time. Like when we're having that conversation off camera, I'm thinking like, wow, he's so level-headed, and I love the idea of like us one day getting engaged for us and not for an audience, and not for people that like won't care in a week or two.
Yeah. Obviously, then you guys film, and then as the show,
People who won't care in a week or two. Sorry. This, how many years later? This is 5 years later. We're watching her on Call Her Daddy. At least I am. I am riveted by this. I'm sorry. We're going to care about it forever. Sorry.
was airing, some controversial photos of you came to light.
Okay, here
And
we go.
During the final episode, Matt basically made it pretty clear like he was going to take a step back from the relationship. What was really going on with you guys?
Okay, interesting. She didn't say the nature of the controversial photos. Those photos were Rachael Kirkconnell in college at antebellum parties. Obviously, there's at that time, the George Floyd protests had just happened, or were happening, I think, as they made Matt James the Bachelor. I can't remember the exact timeline of it, but it was all right there. Those pictures coming out, it started like an explosion in the Bachelor franchise. They put Chris Harrison on an interview with Rachel Lindsay, the first Black Bachelorette, who at the time was on-camera interview talent for Extra. They sent Chris Harrison into that interview, and he basically doubled down saying the antebellum parties weren't that big of a deal, blah, 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 and that led to him being fired from the franchise. It really was a moment in Bachelor history that was maybe one of the most influential moments of all time. Chris Harrison had hosted every episode of every season, and that year he did not host the After the Final Rose. They brought in Emmanuel Acho to do it.
I think that he felt so much pressure with just how the state of the world was, or the state that the world was in at the time with Black Lives Matter, and that was the year after George Floyd, and it was like just such a heavy topic in our country at the time. And then, of course, all of the controversy within the show did not help. And I think he felt so much pressure to just make the right decision and to stand by what was right for him at the time. And, you know, strangers and people that were really close to him in his life were saying, like, I don't think you should be with her. And so I think at the time he thought that was the right decision, just to take a step back.
Yeah, I mean, some people like him as a Bachelor, some don't. I personally cannot imagine the pressure and the difficulty that he had to get through to even just finish the season out, let alone have to deal with this. And it's on a live national audience is watching you at After the Final Rose, and are you still together? And that's where he, you know, kind of finally in the end broke up with her. It's an insane amount of pressure to be under, to just be a lead, period, let alone the first Black Bachelor. At, like she's saying, at a time when the country was just in turmoil over all this stuff going on. I thought, you know, in retrospect, I think he did a great job as the first Black Bachelor, and just as a bachelor generally, in an era in the game where the producers really did seem malevolent, like they wanted to destroy their leads. I think that corner has been turned. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll see again how Grant's season plays out, but so far so good.
And yeah, not be together.
How did you feel about all that? And like, how was it articulated to you?
It hurt because it felt like he was doing it for others and not for himself. It felt like he didn't want to not be with me, and he did want to be with me, but he just felt so much pressure from everyone to not be with me.
If I'm remembering correctly, what he said after the Final Rose was something along the lines of he was just thinking about if they had kids and their kids saw those photos, what would he say to them, or how would he explain that? If I remember, I think that's correct. Don't exactly quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
And so even to this day, like, I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions on that, like what was the right decision, if he should have stood by me or not. And I never held that over his head, and I never will hold that over his head, because I don't know how he felt in that situation, and I never will understand. And I know that he thought he was making the right choice and the right decision, and I'll stand by him, you know, forever with that. That was okay.
Yeah.
As much as it hurt, it was, one of those things where I'm like, you know what, you do need to do what's best for you in this situation, and I understand.
So you guys end, but was it like, we're going to take a break, but we're still going to talk? Were you guys like completely done? Like, did you think this relationship is completely over? Like, what were the next steps after?
This will be very interesting, because from what I remember, it was like, we are donezo forever, never talk to me again.
That kind of ended.
So I was definitely shocked when he broke up with me, only because we were very happy together. Even with all of the chaos around us, when it was just me and him behind closed doors, it was amazing. It was so much fun. We were so happy when we decided to not let the outside noise get to us. So I don't know. It was one of those things where we broke up, and he said we're broken up, but we did still talk like every single day. I think we went like a few days without talking at first when we first broke up. And then after that, it was one of those things where we just started slowly speaking again. And it was one of those things for me where I was like, are you happy? Like, are you happy with this decision? Like, do you think that you'll be okay moving forward without, you know, at least just seeing if this is real, like we both think it is?
Yeah.
And we slowly just started talking again. And I think after the final episode aired, and there was a big group that was mad that we weren't together. Like, there was, of course, the people that were like, you know, good job, yes, shouldn't be on the show. So I think when we saw how many people were like,
some kind of
we
glitch?
should just be together, like, what the heck? I think we both had to sit down and have this conversation of like, okay, let's put all of this.
That's fascinating. So it was because of the outside reaction from Bachelor Nation, essentially. She's saying that they got back together. There was at least a contingent within the nation. I can only assume that's what she's talking about here, like Reddit or something, who was like, no, you guys should just be together. And they were like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. There was enough of a public sentiment to counteract the negative public sentiment that they thought, okay, we can do this and not be hated, I guess. It's fascinating that kind of public pressure plays that big of a role in any of these relationships, but I'm sure it does in all of them. You know, I can't imagine that, like, if you think of Ari Lyondike and Lauren Lyondike, famously, for those who don't know, Ari Lyondike's ring winner was a player named Becca Kufrin. He proposed to her, she accepted, they were together, and then he broke up with her like a month later on camera to go and get his second place finisher because he changed his mind, Lauren Lyondike. They're still married, they have kids, but I'm sure that there was a massive amount of public hatred for them because he kind of like went back on his first choice.
This outside noise aside, let's put everyone aside. What do we want?
Yeah.
Like, how do we feel? And we just came to the conclusion that we really do love each other, and we really do want to make this work, or at least give it a chance. Like, let's give it a fair chance, even with all the craziness. And we did, and it was great. Even with, I mean, I think that first year was hard, but
I was going to say, like, I think I remember, like, seeing things on me chronically online, Reality Steve. I'm like, how do I even know that name? But I remember, like, when you guys were kind of in what seems like this in between, like,
how does she even know that name? Come on. Reality Steve is the founder of Bachelor journalism, essentially.
I was going to ask, like, were you talking to other people? Was he talking to other people? Like, did you guys have an agreement? Like, it's okay if we hook up with other people?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the...
We never really discussed that. I think, like, I was barely getting out of bed, let alone dating other people. Like, I was just so not okay, and I just wanted to be with him, to where dating, that was just like so out of the question for me. Like that wasn't even a thought I had in the back of my mind. And I felt like when we were talking, we never discussed it, but I felt like things that he said and, you know, us talking every day, it seemed like he wasn't either. But that was not the case. He definitely was. And that's okay because we were broken up. I just wish I knew.
Yeah.
Because I found out, I found out via Reality Steve. Well, he contacted my
I love that Reality Steve's getting all these shout outs of this.
well, now she's my sister-in-law, but Reality Steve contacted my brother's girlfriend at the time, and she told me. And I was with Matt.
What did he say?
So he basically said that there was a girl that reached out to him saying, like, you know, Matt and me have been speaking. He's been trying to get me to come over and hang out, and I just saw that him and Rachel were seen together in New York when he was literally just trying to hang out with me like 2 days prior, and I don't think she knows, so
I remember that when those pictures came out of them hanging out together after the breakup. We covered that. Huge news.
I heard it now. And so I was given that information, and I was really, really upset just because I felt like it was definitely kept a secret from me. He technically didn't lie because I never asked, but at the same time, I never would have. Well, maybe he did lie a little bit. Now I'm trying to think about it.
I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you that I was actually seeing somebody else while we were on a date together trying to reconcile our relationship.
Maybe there were some lies in there because I was very, very, very upset when I found everything out. And I just remember telling him that he lied to me.
Yeah.
So with all of that, I just remember storming out of his place and I was like, don't ever talk to me again.
Oh, shit.
Because I just found out a lot of stuff all at once. And yeah, I just was definitely a little bamboozled for sure.
Wow.
So then like we go another week without talking, and long story short, he ends up being in Atlanta for work, and I'm at my friend's apartment, and the hotel they put him in is right next to my friend's apartment. Like we could throw a rock at it, you know?
Of course.
And
Kismet.
yeah, I
Synchronicities.
think he saw my location. He saw it was like literally 100 feet from him, and he was like, I understand you probably don't ever want to talk to me again, but can we meet just so I can apologize and just, you know, share my side of things? And I said yes. And we sat in my car. I wouldn't let him come up to her apartment.
Classic.
So I met him downstairs and we sat in my car and talked for like 6 hours just sitting in the parking garage. And, you know, he explained everything. I heard him out. And it was just one of those things where he was like, just give me a chance. I'm sorry, and I do love you, and I do want to be with you, and I'm done, you know.
Love level 4.
Playing these games. Like, let's give this a real shot. Let's get back together. So I said, okay. I gave him the chance because I loved him.
Love level 4.
When you got back together, coming off of that, coming off of the dynamic on The Bachelor, like, did you have a hard time trusting him?
It's interesting to me. They're not really covering, like, she's saying, like, coming off that dynamic in The Bachelor. That season threatened to destroy the entire franchise. It is so important historically in terms of the kind of trajectory of where the franchise went after that. I don't know if they're ever going to get into that on this, unfortunately, but it is fascinating to hear this stuff. All the little details of how we apologize in the car and all this. This is absolutely fascinating.
1,000%. So I told myself, like, he has a lot to move on from with me, and then I have a lot to move on from with him. So we both need to decide, like, if we really do want to be together, we need to forgive and move on. And I think that's a lot easier said than done. I just was really insecure the first year of our relationship. I think it was everything that happened, of course, but also that power dynamic, like him being the lead of, you know, a dating show and me just being a contestant. And yeah, I felt like there was always that just not imbalance of power, but it definitely felt like he was like the star and I was just, his little like groupie or something.
Now that's interesting because that is literally the premise of The Bachelor. The lead is the star, be it Bachelor or Bachelorette. And all of the players literally are, one among, in her case, 37 or 38, if you want to count Heather Martin, that season. You are kind of a groupie. I mean, that's the premise of the show. So going into it, I mean, that's maybe a component of this, I think, that most players don't really think about. Best case scenario, you walk out of there engaged to somebody, but you will have to do a watch back where you watch that person go into fantasy suites with at least 2 other people. Depending on the season, there was one season that had 4. And you'll see him making out with all these other players. That is a component of this that I think is very hard for a lot of couples that come out of The Bachelor to deal with in the first year, for sure. So I get what she's saying here.
And it's not like anything he did. It was just, I think that probably every couple that comes from the show might have a little bit of difficulty in that area of like, you were this person that 40 women were fighting over and that
38.
Everyone's obsessed with, and then I'm just, some girl. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And so, and then even, going out publicly, it seemed like I told myself that the world hated me, that everyone hated me, but everyone loved him. And so I feel like when we would go out, it'd be like, oh, Matt James and Rachel. Like, I don't know. And I don't know if that was in my head or not, but that's just how it felt.
Yeah.
So I definitely felt, and it was one of those things where I'm like, he could get anyone. He could have anyone. Like, why is he with me? And so when he would go do things without me, I'd be like, there's probably like someone hotter and cooler and more fun than me hitting on him right now. And like, why is he even with me?
Brutal.
Yeah, just really, really insecure. I felt like I had a hard time trusting him because of what was happening when we were apart.
Okay.
And that girl coming to Reality Steve and everything,
Yep.
I'm just like
Yeah.
asking myself, like, are you still doing this? But I know to this day, like, and I even see this online now, he's not a cheater.
Mm-hmm.
I never actually had to worry about him cheating on me because technically if he was ever with other women, we were apart. So I can't, call him a cheater or worry about him cheating on me.
Was that the only time that you guys were apart and he was with another woman, or was there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so from your understanding, the 4 years of your relationship, he was faithful to you.
Yes. I think I see a lot of that right now because I reposted a funny video on TikTok of like some girl, I don't know, doing something to her best friend's ex-boyfriend. So now everyone's thinking that but that was before we even broke up. So
the first year was difficult, but then there's 3 years.
I gotta say, I got nabbed on that one. She posted this video on TikTok. I didn't realize it was before the breakup. It came out, I guess, close enough to the breakup that people got caught up. She posted this video, or reposted a video that was basically like kind of getting revenge on an ex-boyfriend for cheating. And so everybody thought that was the reason.
To come that,
but I guess not.
And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like seemed like you guys were so happy. Every time I opened Instagram, you guys were in a new city or a new country and you were trying different foods and you were, being thrown into these beautiful other cultures and experiences. And it just felt like you guys were on this whirlwind together. Like, how did that lifestyle of just constantly going and traveling together feel?
I think at first it was so fun. Like I couldn't believe that my life was what it was. I just went from being this.
And this is something that I think gets ignored a lot. There's this idea in The Bachelor that you come into the show and it's a fantasy that the show makes for you, but the real world's not going to be like this. Well, sometimes it is, because you're famous when you come off the show and you're going to get flown around. You're going to get free stuff. You're going to get paid to go take vacations at resorts and stuff like that. How many other players wound up at Nemacolin where they shot that Bachelor season 25 doing like SpawnCon? Yes, you may not have producers and TV cameras following you around everywhere and, every moment of your life being kind of scripted by those producers. But in terms of getting to have the fantasy elements of this, it can extend beyond the show because now you're famous.
Normal person to going on this crazy dating show, actually falling in love, being with the guy, and then we're doing these really fun experiences that I would have never done otherwise. So it was so much fun, even through like all the insecurities and everything. But I think for the first like 2 years, it was just fun dating, not really too worried about like a proposal and marriage. I mean, we definitely always had those conversations, but I don't think either of us were in a rush yet. Like, I think those first few years, it felt like a normal relationship.
Okay, this must be where she's getting to. The thing most people think ended the relationship is that she gave him an ultimatum to be engaged by the end of 2024. He did not make good on that, and therefore they were gonna break up. But I guess he pulled the trigger without her knowledge. We'll get to that, I'm sure, but I think that's how this is going. This seems to be the direction she's taking now.
Yeah.
You know, I think in like the real world, dating for a few years without a proposal or marriage is normal.
Yes.
So that's what we were both telling ourselves. Like, we just want to have the most normal relationship possible, because it definitely started out very unconventionally, and it still is crazy just having, you know, strangers care about your relationship. It's great sometimes, but yeah, other times it's a lot. So it was just really not, it was, I hate saying it wasn't too serious, but it was just more fun and really getting to know each other and just dating. And then I think like last year, our third year, well, I guess that was 2 years ago now. Yeah. So I guess our third year of dating was when I started to just ask, like, okay, so where is this going? Like, what? I didn't ever want a timeline of things. I never wanted to know, like, when a proposal was coming. I think, like, some girls these days, like, they want to know when it's coming. They want to pick the ring out. They want to pick their outfit out. And I always told him, like, I don't want to know anything. I want to be so shocked, so surprised. But I do want to know that that's where your head's at and that we're on the same page. So.
And what would he say?
He seemed like he was on the same page. Like,
damn.
That's why it's. Try not to cry.
Brutal.
It was like just confusing to look back on now, because when we would talk about things, he always seemed like he was on the same page, privately and publicly. You know, whether we were doing interviews or whether he was replying to people in comments, like talking about getting married and everything like that. So, yeah, I guess it's just hard to think about. It's just one of those things that you replay a lot over and over again, because the words were there, and, you know, us talking about taking the next steps, all of that was fine, but, you know, the actions obviously weren't there.
I was going to say, like,
God.
from my understanding.
Is Matt James going to do this on a podcast? I don't know what podcast he'd go on. Maybe call her daddy. I need to hear his side of this now. This is insane.
Obviously, you spent 4 years together, but you never lived together.
No, so, like, that was another thing. He said that he didn't want to live together until we were married. And he's a very religious man. So I was like, that's okay. I can do that. But at the same time, I'm a little confused because we're still, you know, traveling together, staying in the same hotel. And it was like we were living together. Like, half of his stuff is still at my place in Georgia right now. But he always had an apartment in Miami or New York. So we were either in New York, Miami, or in Atlanta. And I think at the time I just didn't worry about it too much because it was fun. I feel like whenever we would talk about our life, we would say, like, we want multiple homes anyways, like, to be, or just, you know, a little space here and there, like a home somewhere. But it'd be fun to keep the apartment in Miami or keep the apartment in New York.
Nice to be famous.
And so I think that I was making excuses for it because it was one of those things where we were saying that was going to be our life anyways. So I guess I just didn't think too much on it. But I also think it was me trying to justify it just because I didn't want to worry, like, well, is this like fear of like, taking the next steps? Of course you don't want to admit that to yourself.
Yeah.
So now, looking back on it, maybe is what it was. But
did you have any friends or your family be like, Rachel, how are you guys not living together yet?
No, only because
the religious.
Yeah, well, it was like we basically did live together. At least in Georgia, it was like our house. Like that's where home base was for us, I would say. Like that's where most of his stuff was. That's obviously where all my stuff is. And whenever we weren't traveling, that's where we would be.
Okay.
So it did feel like we were living together, but at the end of the day, it was my place. I don't know. Yeah. So it was just one of those things where looking back, that was probably a red flag, but I just tried to tell myself that it was okay.
When you say that you guys talked about engagement, do you mind sharing just like how detailed did you guys get? Like, did you talk about how many kids? Did you talk about where you, like, can you share?
Yeah. I honestly think we talked about family and kids more than anything, which is like, that sucks more than anything, I think, because I think when you picture your life or you have an idea of what it's going to look like, and now I'm like, I have no idea what.
We call that future casting in the game. It's a play you can make, especially toward the later phases of the game, the playoffs, you get into hometowns, you get into fantasy suites, certainly in finals. You want to do that future casting. I can see what our house is going to look like. I can picture us going to the grocery store, having normal life together.
Life looks like from here on out. And yeah, it's sad to like think about these. I'm trying not to laugh at myself, but like, yeah, I'm like picturing these kids that are obviously like no longer a thing, which like kind of sounds crazy.
Brutal.
I'm not trying to sound like an insane person, but
you don't sound crazy.
That's probably like one of the saddest things about it is just picturing your life with someone and thinking like that is how your life's gonna look, and then now it's just all taken away.
What are the odds Kirkconnell is on Bachelor in Paradise season 10? These producers have to be salivating over the possibility of this. She would be an incredible player on sand. God, I hope they make that happen.
But yeah, we talked about rings. He told me a few months ago to start, saving some things, picking things out, or that we should go look at some. And that was a big deal, I would say, for him to say. That's when I was like, wow, okay, he really is like on board with this. Like that was such a green flag to me. And I felt like the longer we were together, the more he was able to talk about it. And I think at first I could tell it was something that did scare him a lot, or it was like a really hard thing for him to talk about. And it just seemed easier and easier as our relationship went on. So I felt like that was a good sign.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I think when he started talking about kids and picking out a ring and wedding food and where we want the wedding, like stuff like that, I used those things to just hold on, if that makes sense. Like, I don't.
Of course. That's, it throws, even in my opinion, even more confusion into why he broke up with her. If he's talking about this kind of stuff, it seems like he's on board 100%.
Know if there were any actions following those things, but when you're told these things, you just like want to hold on.
Yeah.
Of course.
When you look back at those conversations, do you see any like patterns or themes of like when he would engage in it? Like, was it when you were like, you know what I mean? Like, was there any like him engaging, being like, I want you to be the mother of my children. Like, I want to have a wedding. Like, did you ever see a pattern?
I definitely would. I'm sure I would bring it up more, but it wouldn't ever be in like a pressure kind of way. It would just like come naturally in a conversation, but he seemed more than happy to talk about things too. Yeah. And I don't know, it wasn't like a pattern of, I think at the end of the day, when I think about things, like the words were there, but the actions weren't.
Yeah.
Like they weren't matching.
Mm-hmm.
So he would say these things, but then, okay, well, what are you doing
So he was effectively lying to her then, if I'm reading this correctly.
to get to this, if that makes sense? Like, what are we doing actively to have an engagement and plan a wedding and all of this stuff? You know, like you said that we can go look at rings, but okay, is that going to happen? You know, because it was one of those things where I was like, okay, he said that, but I'm going to let him bring it back up if he meant it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. Because from what I'm hearing from you too, it's like you're again kind of like waiting for him to engage in some capacity, and it's like kind of on his terms. And it's that's really hard. I'm sorry, because it's hard to break then that pattern of like when someone is kind of the one in control to get to just feeling like we're in a partnership and it's not me kind of like tiptoeing and seeing if you're interested. Like it's hard to break that cycle.
Yeah, it's just it's such a weird thing to begin with, because at the end of the day, like, it's mostly men who propose.
Yeah.
Like, it's of course different for everyone these days.
It's different for Jen Tran.
But everyone's like, yeah, she's on his timeline. And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where at the end of the day, he's the one that needs to get down on a knee.
I think in a beautiful way, and this is what I know we're about to get there, but like just cutting to the other side of it for you is like, I've been there where I felt the same exact way, where I was like, he talks about the house in Westchester with me and we're like together, but I still like nothing has happened yet. Like I can tell you now, having a partner, that it does feel super like 50-50 and everything with my husband. Like I wasn't surprised at all when, oh my God, his name is Matt too. When Matt would like bring things up about future or like, let's go ring shopping together. Like where in previous relationships I was, and I think I recognized because I had never had it, which I'm like hopeful for you to experience, of like, we were so in lockstep that I could have gotten down on one knee. You know what I mean? And so I think I get what you're saying. And I think a lot of women experience this where like we condition ourselves to believe like it is his decision at the end of the day. And I think unfortunately, like that's not how it should be. Yes, the gesture for him physically getting on the knee is so romantic and fun, but like you should still have a say in whether it's going to happen or not, and not have to wait for someone to do that for you. And I think a lot of women are going to be sitting listening to this interview being like, fuck, Rachel, like there may be women listening to this that are realizing right now, Rachel, like they're in the same situation as you. Is like, he keeps saying these things, the words are there, but the actions aren't. I'm curious, like, over the course of your relationship, we're talking about engagement, we're talking about a wedding. Did Matt ever express any doubts about your guys' future together?
I think there were times in our relationship where, I don't want to say he seemed scared, but I think that he felt the weight of marriage.
There's also something that happens sometimes in bachelor relationships or any reality TV show relationships where it's like the nature of it being formed or at least started on a reality show kind of completely invalidates it for one of the parties. And they have locked into their mind from the beginning that this is not a real relationship and we can date and have fun for a little while and make some Instagram pictures, but I can't wind up with this person. I don't know if that was the case here for him or not, but it might explain it to some degree. I'm not sure.
Really heavily on him, and I think that's for him to discuss, like, why he felt like that. I never knew if it was because there was something wrong with me, or like not wrong with me. I keep trying to tell myself that there's nothing wrong with me, even though, like, of course it feels like it sometimes. But I ask myself, like, is it me or is it him? Like, is it something that he needs to figure out? You know, is there something that scares him Is there something that he went through growing up that, you know, he has this trauma now? Or am I just not like his perfect person? So I would just say, I still don't know. I think like time will tell, and I think that he'll have to answer that and figure that out.
Yeah.
But
Obviously every couple like has their problems. Like no couple is perfect. For you and Matt, like what would typically trigger an argument?
we really didn't argue a lot. When we would argue, it would more so be like someone did something to piss the other person off, and then I don't know, it was like I guess we were both pretty stubborn. So we both thought that we were in the right and that they were in the wrong. And we just had a hard time seeing eye to eye sometimes. Like I was always trying to remind him that we are on the same side, and the problem is the problem. Like we're arguing like this when it should be like, okay, we're a team. Here's the issue. How can we fix this together? It was either that, or it was just acting out of, like in the moment, acting out of anger and not
Who made the charcuterie board incorrectly?
meaning things. So then it was one of those things where I was like, okay, if we're ever annoyed or irritated, let's just, you know, take a breather. Let's not talk for a second and really try to figure out what the actual problem is, like where this anger is stemming from, and then we can discuss it.
Was there someone in the relationship that would like apologize first more often?
This is what's crazy is I feel like I was apologizing a lot. Even if I was the one that was mad about something, we would sit down and I'd be like, I'm annoyed about this. And then at the end of the conversation, I would be the one that would be saying sorry. And I started feeling crazy. But at the end of the relationship, he basically said that I have a hard time taking accountability and apologizing. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm going crazy because I feel like I do say sorry a lot for things that I'm not even like sure what I'm saying sorry for.
This is kind of the first thing she said in this interview that's like a direct shot at him, that, you know, she's maybe implying that he was making her think things were the way they were, but they weren't really that way.
Or, you know, but that's maybe that was his argument that I wasn't understanding. I think that we just had
Rachel,
hard times understanding where we were each coming from. And now I still feel crazy. You know, I'm like,
first of all, you're not crazy. And what you just said, one of my really close friends just went through, where she was like, I'm always the one having to take accountability, and he's getting so mad at me if like I don't own it. But I'm like, I didn't.
am I like, yeah, why am I?
I didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's
we're
what,
in this fight because you did this, and somehow I'm upset, and then I'm having to. That's not healthy. That's not fair to you, because when you look back, why do you think you were so quick to take accountability in arguments, even if it wasn't?
So this is like kind of the first direct point she's making at something that Matt James was doing in the relationship that was maybe not healthy, as Alex Cooper here's saying. You know, I don't know if he's going to do a counter response to this, an interview with somebody else perhaps. If he does, I feel like that will be one of the things that gets brought up in it, and he may have to answer for that directly.
Your own problem.
Because he was just so like adamant that I have a hard time like admitting I'm wrong or taking accountability. And so when your partner is telling you those things, like, you want to believe them. You want to be like, okay.
It sounds like he was trying to manufacture a reason for the breakup that would exonerate him from blame. That's just what it sounds like from this. I don't know the truth of it. That's what I'm getting out of this.
If this really is like a problem I have and something that you're really upset about, then of course, like, I want to try to do what I can to fix that. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever know.
The feeling of leaving an argument and not feeling like you both won, there is no winning. It's like, oh God, we, like you kind of said, like, we came together and we solved that together. Like, how did you feel a lot of times when you would apologize, like, and then you walk away from that situation after like the 50th time? Like, did it start to weigh on you?
I would say it didn't weigh on me in the sense that it made me angry, but it almost worried me that he was gonna leave me or break up with me, or that I wasn't good enough.
Yeah, so he was, again, I don't know what the truth of it is. What I'm hearing here is he had to kind of like, he put her on emotionally, psychologically shaky ground in the relationship and kind of laid the framework for a possible ending of the relationship because of something she did, at least in the perception of how he was presenting it.
I think like when you're told that you're the one in the wrong, then you're like, okay, so what can I do to be better or be a better partner? Yeah, now looking back on it, I have to ask myself, like, was it deserved or not? I don't know, but yeah, it was one of those things where I went into the conversation irritated with him, and then I leave the conversation like hoping that he's not irritated with me, and that I'm sorry and I want him to not be mad at me. Like, you start to lose your mind a little bit.
Let's talk
Wow.
about the breakup. Daddy gang, let's talk about dating. Okay, I know I am married.
I'm gonna go past
Let's
this
your
if I
friends
can.
know. When your relationship ended, you were into at least for yourself. It starts with what was the state of your relationship when you were going into that trip?
It was great. I mean, we
Wait,
were.
hang on. I've messed up something.
What was the state of your
Here we go.
From what we can see online, when your relationship ended, you were in Tokyo together. What was the state of your relationship when you were going into that trip?
It was great. I mean, we were literally talking about engagement, marriage, all the things on that trip. We had been together since, I think it was like January 3rd. I met him in London.
Okay.
So we were in London having a great time. And then we went from London to Tokyo, just because we had the time and we had these like flight vouchers that were expiring for like an international flight.
And those vouchers, I'm sure, come because they're famous. This is what I'm saying. Like, sometimes when you come out of The Bachelor, it doesn't end. You just keep doing it for as long as you can.
And Japan is like my favorite country in the entire world. So we were like, let's just do it while we can. So it was very unplanned, very last minute trip, but it was fun, exciting.
Yeah.
You know, everything was great. There was nothing wrong.
So we're in Tokyo.
Mhm.
Everything's going fine.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
So it's just so hard to grasp because I don't even know if like he knew it was coming, like, or if it was like he of the moment. I don't know. So everything was fine. The night before, we didn't have an argument, but I was feeling very overwhelmed. I was like trying so hard to find like a good dinner spot for us because the spot we ended up wanting to go to was closed or something. So we were scrambling. And I was putting so much pressure on finding a good spot because he cares. Like, this is like his career, you know, like going to good food spots. So
he would do like a review if you guys got there of like food.
Anywhere we would go if it was good, like literally every single meal that we would have.
Wow.
We were filming. So yeah, I think I just put so much
And that became his job. I mean, that's what The Bachelor does.
pressure on myself to find good spots if I'm the one that's finding a spot.
And is she getting paid for that? Is he giving her some of that SpawnCon money if she's the one who's basically producing his SpawnCon?
So on top of that, I just started my period. I felt terrible. Like, just was having like a rough few hours, I guess. And I remember asking him to help me find a spot. And he was like, you know, no, like, I think he was like doing something else on his phone. And he was like, it doesn't matter where we go. Like, we can go literally anywhere. Just like pick somewhere. He kept saying like, it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. But I felt like it was a big deal and that it did matter. So we get to this place. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, tired, cranky, emotional, on my period, feeling terrible, overwhelmed with looking for a dinner spot for like an hour. And then we get there and it was a disappointment. So then I started tearing up at dinner. 2 tears. 1, 2, we're done. Didn't, allow myself to get upset after that. Just tried to calm down. We went home and
Did he say anything?
no, didn't say anything. But
Damn.
in the past, if I have
Her tear play was unrecognized by Matt James.
like a little meltdown like that, or if I'm feeling overwhelmed or anything, he just like lets me move through the motions, get it all out of my system, and then, okay, I'm ready to talk, like something like that.
So dinner, like, did you guys have like normal conversation?
No, we didn't even talk. Like, I just sat there, had dinner, got into the Uber.
Wait, Rachel, why did you feel so upset about like the menu not being good?
I felt like whenever we
This is wild though. This can't be the reason. The reason they broke up a 5-year relationship where they were talking about marriage and kids and all this shit and buying a house together is because she picked a bad dinner place one night. This can't
go
be true.
somewhere and it was bad that it was just disappointing because I think like we're on trips, it's like every meal counts, like every dinner, everywhere we go, it counts, or it's important because you only have so many meals in the day. And this sounds crazy, but as like a food person, I'm trying to just make sure that he's getting good content for our trip and stuff, because I know like it's important to him and that it's something that we'll both post about. So I'm just feeling bad, I guess, that it was a bad spot. And then
Are you feeling like you're disappointing him?
yeah, I guess yeah, just
But if you can make good content, you can make it no matter where you go. I mean, they could have made funny content about it being a bad spot, or they could have pretended that it was a good spot.
disappointing him, or just like I think he was just like, what is the big deal? So we finally get to the hotel and I give him a hug, and I could just tell like he was just like, not very comforting. And I'm like, are you mad at me? And he was like, I'm just so confused, like why you were so upset, like what was that? And I explained to him, I'm like, I felt like I had let you down, like I felt like that was disappointing, and I hate going to a place that isn't somewhere that like you could post about. I feel like it's a waste. And he just was trying to tell me like it's not that serious, like it's not that big of a deal. But then he was concerned about me getting so upset. He was like, that was like there.
So if I'm reading this right, he broke up with her out of the blue. And his basis of doing that was her overreacting to not picking a good enough place to eat dinner that they can make social media posts about it. I'm lost. I got to admit here, this is unraveling before my eyes.
There was no reason for you to get upset like that. And he found it concerning that I got that emotional, I guess.
I think he was looking for an out. I think he was trying to build some kind of framework that you're not apologizing enough, you're not taking accountability, so he had that going. It seemed like he was looking for the way out of this relationship earlier to this. Then this was it. He saw this, she broke down, I'm going to go with this tack. You got too upset over that bad restaurant. I can't be in a relationship with somebody who gets that upset about things that don't matter.
Yes. And so then and he just was trying to express to me, like, if you get emotional about little things like this, like, what is going to happen in life when something really terrible happens? Like, how are you going to be able to react to things that are actually really scary or disappointing or sad? And I think
that
like
made my chair go down.
I don't know. It just hurt to hear, because I'm like,
it's like, dude, you saw her on the stage after the final rose. You know how she reacts to the big things. She comes through it, and you get back together. This is wild.
I probably would react to things that are terrible in a sad way. Like, what do you mean? I don't know. It felt like I was being punished for crying. It was just so weird. I don't know. Still don't really know that whole situation. I just was really confused by his reaction.
And in the past, like, how does Matt usually respond when you are upset?
He'll let me Like, he'll give me my space.
Do you
and
want space?
No.
Oh.
No, I don't. I like want to be comforted, but for some reason Matt always thought that I'd need space, and then we'd talk about it after, even though I would tell him like I don't want you to like give me my space, because then I feel like I'm not getting any support, or like comfort from you. But that was just something that he thought like he just needed me to calm down, and then we would talk and everything would be okay.
So this happens, and then is literally the next day the breakup.
Yes.
What?
So you wake up.
So he literally broke up with her because she overreacted to finding a bad dinner place and they couldn't make an Instagram post. This is wild. I don't understand this at all. I have more questions than answers now.
The next morning, what are the vibes? Is he tense? Are you guys acting weird? Like, take
No.
me through that whole day.
Everything was fine. Like when we went to bed, he was saying like it's okay, it's okay. So I just let it go. He let it go. It was totally fine the next day.
Okay.
And I think it was one of those things where, I mean, literally a few days before, we're talking about how he feels lucky to have me as a partner, and that, there's just like so many qualities that he loves that I have, and that, we see relationships with other people where they deal with a lot and or put up with a lot of things, and he's like, it's just so nice that I just feel like very lucky that I can call you my partner. And that was so crazy to think like that was like 2 days before the breakup.
Yeah.
And that morning everything was fine, we were in good moods, and I think it was one of those things where it was just maybe a little arguments open up a can of worms. So we were on the way to get some food, and I was like scrolling through my phone, showing him a bunch of videos. I guess I was bothering him. I was annoying him, and he didn't snap at me, but he basically was.
What were those videos? What were those videos? Could have been the videos. What videos was she picking out to show him that might annoy him?
It's like, okay, kind of snapped at me to where I got mad at him, because I was like,
For showing videos, I feel like at this point in human history, at least 50% of any relationship is showing each other videos. I don't see why you'd be mad about this.
even if I'm annoying you, like, don't treat me like that. And so then it seemed like we were both kind of like mad at each other or annoyed with each other. So when we got to this place, it was just this big market with a bunch of different food and everything. So we get there and I just walk off and go do my own thing for a second. I'm picking up like chopsticks and things for my friends. And he's going to find this like matcha spot that he was really excited to try. So we kind of just get there and split up for a little bit, which wasn't, normal. Like usually we would be doing these things together.
And how do you feel in that moment? Like, do you have a pit in your stomach? Are you like, something's off?
No, I just was like, I didn't think anything like too much of it. I really didn't. I just was annoyed with him. That's all. Like, I was annoyed with him and he was annoyed with me. Like, it really didn't even seem like that big of a deal. It was just one of those things where you're just like, at that point we had been together nonstop for like 3 weeks. And I think like you just get annoyed with each other about little things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we were. We were just like irritated with one another with little things. But I didn't think anything of it. It was what it was. And then we had some food. We got back in the car and I just was being really quiet. And he was like, can I ask like why you're being so quiet? And I was like, I feel like you're irritated with me right now. And I don't really like want to say anything if I don't have to say anything, because I just don't want to bug you. Like, I just don't really want to chat right now there's nothing I have to say because I just want to try and like give you your space because I feel like you're annoyed with me right now. And that is just like what opened up everything.
Oh, God.
And we had gotten into an argument right then and there, like walking in the street. We skipped lunch. We went back to the hotel and just ended up having like a bigger conversation. I think that's what I was saying, like can of worms where it wasn't a big deal. We were just a little irritated with another. But then it was
Man.
like, okay, now that we're back here again where like you're annoyed with me, I'm annoyed with you, I feel like you're in the wrong, you feel like I'm in the wrong. He really just kind of let out everything that I guess he had been feeling for a while. I don't know.
Can you share something?
That's what I'm saying. I think from what she's saying, it sounds like he was trying to lay this groundwork to do the breakup, and he thought, okay, this is the moment. We're in a big fight. We both are. We're in that antagonistic kind of mindset. We're arguing with each other. I'm just gonna escalate this and fucking do it.
Some of that.
Yeah, I mean, he said that at the end of the day, there were just qualities about me that he worries about having a wife. Like at the end of the day,
Jesus.
like there are things that we aren't compatible with, and like the whole accountability and saying sorry and all that was really the main thing. And
that seems like a weak thing. I'm telling you, I think he was trying to do this for a long time and just picked a moment where they were like kind of in a fight to do it.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where he, I think, just had this realization that I should want to propose to you by this time. Like at this point in our relationship, I should be wanting those things. And I should be ready for that, but I'm not still. I still don't feel like we're ready, or I don't feel like I'm ready. I don't know if I ever see myself proposing to you. I can't actually see myself married to you.
Oh my God. Now this comes after, from what she said, he had told her where they're going to live and how many kids they're going to have and all this. So he must have been lying at that point, or his mind has changed now?
He said that, you know, maybe one day he would get there, but he doesn't feel ready now. And I told him, I said, well, I feel like after 4 years, you should know, or you should feel ready. And if you don't, then that's not a good thing. We probably shouldn't be together if you don't feel like that after 4 years, because you know me better than anyone. I know you better than anyone. So you should know by now if you see this for the long haul or not. And it was just one of those things where it was like, do you want to make this work? Like, do you think that it's me, or is it something with you? Like, are you scared, or is it really me? Like, is your perfect person somewhere out there? You know, is it not me?
It's Claire Crawley.
Yeah, he came to the conclusion that he didn't think it was me.
Shit. God, that's rough.
That he said, like, he just didn't want me to end up resenting him by, like, wasting more of my time if it wouldn't happen.
Okay.
And yeah, he just said, you know, you're beautiful, smart, and funny, and you'll find someone, you'll find a guy that will love you for you. But yeah, he just didn't think that it was him. But it was just really, it's just a lot to hear at once, because a few days before, you know, I'm hearing the opposite.
Yeah.
In that moment, Rachel, were you like vocalizing like anything in terms of like, why have you been so vocal? Like, I've seen him on podcasts and he's commented in random like fan accounts being like engagements coming soon. Like he's been overly vocal more than you about like telling the world like, oh, it's coming, like it's coming, which like is a little odd. I'm not gonna lie. Like in my opinion, I was like, how
it's money. If you have an engagement coming, or you get engaged, or you get married, or you have babies, these are the big moments in reality TV couple lifespans that give you the most money, the most followers. So if you keep teasing people, you keep stringing them along, and maybe that's why he was with her for so long too. I don't know. But it had to have been a factor. Like, you can't not think about that, especially because he's making money now off of his social media. That's his primary income, I think. He had to have taken that into account, like what it would do to kind of stoke the fans and be like, we're going to get engaged. We're going to get engaged. Then we're all waiting with bated breath to see that engagement post, him getting down on a knee, sun setting in Tokyo, wherever it was going to be. Never going to come now. But I mean, I could see that being a reason why he did this.
Much he was speaking about it, and yet like now what you're sharing for him to just like quickly be like, never mind, like in that moment where you're like, then why have you been saying this? Why did 2 days ago you say I was like the perfect partner with you?
I think because I think it's because he did love me, or does really love me, and I think he wanted it to work out, and like I think he wanted to picture it, and it was one of those things where it was like, well, it would definitely be easy too, like it just would make sense, and that was like the next steps naturally in a relationship. And he does love me to where I think he just wanted it to work. But I guess at the end of the day, like as much as he wanted it to work and as much as he loves me, he still just doesn't think that I'm like the person for him. And so I think maybe he was just trying to see if he could get there or convince himself that it was the right thing. But yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I still don't know. Like, I don't know if he reacted out of anger or spite, or if he didn't mean it. And to be totally honest with you, if he didn't post it so publicly, like right after he broke up with me, I don't even know where we'd be right now. Because I think when someone tells you that to your face, like, I don't think you're my person, I don't ever picture us getting married, it's your time to walk away. Like, I can't stick around after that, even if I want to, like, even if it's hard for me to let go. And like, I love him so much and I wanted him to be my partner. But yeah, I think when someone says that to you, it's like, what else
can you do?
Yeah, you have to give it up at that point.
When you were hearing him say all of this to you, like what was going through your head?
Honestly, I think like I was worried that he thought that for a little while. Like, I guess in the back of my mind, I always wondered if he had doubts, or like, yeah, just had doubts about me being his person. And I only had those doubts because, you know, the actions, like I said, weren't following up with his words. So I'm like, I feel like I just want to be with someone who like is so excited to be with me and wants to marry me and is excited to, you know, start a life with me. And I feel like it was definitely one of those things with him where I could feel like he was nervous, but I just always told myself he was nervous because of like how he grew up, and he didn't want to end up like his father, or just didn't want to like end up in like a broken home, and that he took it really, really seriously, which he would probably say the same thing, that he just puts so much weight on it because he never wants to do to his family what his dad did to them. But I also told myself that I think like sometimes that put like a hindrance on our relationship. Mm-hmm. And I always wondered, like, is it me, or is it something that like we need to like work through together?
So at the end of this conversation, is it like, okay, so we're breaking up?
It ended with him saying, you're beautiful, smart, funny. You'll find someone. I'll never say a bad thing about you. And yeah, we're done. And I literally said, okay. I said, okay. Didn't say anything else. I just said, okay. And then I got my suitcase, went down to the lobby, got in a car, went to the airport.
Did you have a ticket?
Yeah, so I had to leave a day before.
Okay.
So the breakup comes, it seems almost planned. If he did it right before her flight's going to leave, it's like you're in a foreign country, you know each other's flight schedules. I better get this breakup done, then she can cry herself back home as she flies away.
I was trying to make it home for a baby shower that I did not end up going to.
He did this right before he knew you were having to go to the airport to fly from Tokyo to Atlanta.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that was, I just like couldn't believe it. Going to the airport, I was like, what?
I mean, that seems very planned to me. I don't know about you. Seems very planned to me, literally to the minute.
What the hell is happening,
Yeah. Like, were you...
Let's see, your flight leaves at 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to do the breakup at 1:45. That should be plenty of time.
in shock? Were you crying?
Both. Just like pure shock, so much confusion. Obviously sad because of everything he just said to me. Very, very hurtful, which here's the thing. He's allowed to feel like that. If that's really how he feels, you're so allowed to feel like that. I wouldn't want someone to propose to me and be married to me just because they felt like they have to, even though they didn't feel like they wanted to. So at the end of the day, if that's really how he felt, then he is so valid to feel like that. And at least we figured that out before we were married or anything.
Also doesn't take away from the fact, Rachel, that like it seems like you were completely blindsided.
I mean, yes, it was definitely out of nowhere. I don't think he was planning on doing it.
100% was. I don't know if he was planning on doing it on that trip. And again, I don't know any of these people. This is just my own take on this. But from the evidence she is supplying here, it feels to me very much like he couldn't pick a good time to do it, but he had been thinking about this for a long time, and it was coming to a head, and he wanted to do it at some point, and he thought, I can do it here right before she gets on this flight, and then I don't really have to deal with her, and it's like out of sight, out of mind. I did it, cut clean, and be gone.
I think that it was one of those things where he just came to this realization during our argument. I don't know.
So we have to talk about his breakup post.
Please,
because
God,
without
thank
a doubt,
you.
it is one of the weirder, cryptic. I mean, people on the internet are like, this is going to go down in history as like one of the weirdest Instagram breakup posts I've ever seen.
Couldn't agree more. We read it word for word in a couple weeks ago in our This Week in Bachelor Nation and Bachelor Nation News. Go check it out for yourself if you haven't seen it. Maybe they'll read it here. I don't know. It was absolutely bizarre.
Can you talk to me about like, where were you when you saw this post?
So I had just gotten to the airport and, checked my bags, everything, got on the flight.
Okay.
And I'm in my seat, and for some reason, my phone, I think it's because I downloaded a VPN on my phone a few years ago, and now for whatever reason, it cannot connect to plain Wi-Fi.
Okay.
It just can't. I don't know why. So whenever I take these long flights, like I'm off the grid. So we're literally getting ready to take off, and my phone blows up. It's one of my best friends, and it says Rach with a bunch of question marks. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, how does she know? And then she texted me again and said, I saw Matt's post. Is this real life? And that's how I found out that he posted.
He broke up with her. He broke up with her. Like, as she's leaving to go to the airport, and then made that wild ass post by the time she's in the plane. What is that? Maybe an hour later? Unreal.
Posted. So then, literally, the plane is taking off.
Oh my God.
And I see his post, and that's it. I don't have any service or anything for like the next 12 hours. So
Oh
I'm
my
freaking out
God.
because,
A living hell.
you know, just got broken up with, and now a few hours later, it's like for the whole world to see. And I'm still like trying to process it. Like I'm still in like total shock. So then knowing like the whole world is seeing this.
Yeah, just knowing that your phone is just going to be thousands of DMs, thousands of text messages. What's going on? Oh my God. And having no way to navigate any of that until you land, and you're just going to have to open your phone up to that. That's unbelievable. Like, why he would have done it that quick and not, you know, especially for all the things she's saying. He said, I love you. You're going to find a great guy. I have nothing bad to say about you. Why put her in this position then? I mean, he made the move. There's no denying that. Was it a good move? No. I would say it's probably like parasocial error of the year, and we're not even a month into the year.
I'm like, this is so crazy. I can't even wrap my mind around this right now. And I think that's why, you know, I didn't say anything, still haven't like made a statement or anything, because I'm processing this just like everyone else is. Like I'm a week out of this, you know?
So what would you say, like 2 hours after
I would say like, yeah, 2 or 3 hours after
he posted that?
Mm-hmm.
When you read the post, what went through your mind? Like, what did you think of the post?
I don't know. I honestly didn't think, I guess
I have
I
to
was
read the
so
post.
freaked out about the
Same.
breakup itself, and then just now knowing that I'm going to have to navigate this very publicly. That's kind of all I was thinking. I wasn't even like analyzing the post.
I'm going to read the post. The post, by the way, is a picture of him and Rachael Kirkconnell meeting for the first time upon her limo entrance in Bachelor Season 25. This is one of the only times that he has even acknowledged being the Bachelor since that experience. The caption reads this: Father God, give Rachel and I strength to mend our broken hearts. Give us peace about this decision to end our relationship that transcends worldly understanding. Shower our friends and family with kindness and love to comfort us and remind us that our joy comes from you, Lord. Broken heart emoji. That's what he posted.
Post like everyone else was.
Yeah.
So I guess it was kind of funny just to see what people had to say. Like people thought it was weird that it was a Bachelor photo, because we definitely like tried to remove ourselves from the show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was interesting to see the caption, only because I feel like there was no, I don't know how to explain it. I guess it almost seemed like saying it like a prayer was the easier way to say it than to like say something like real.
Yeah,
Not-
totally. I think Christian players can do that from time to time. It's part of one of the benefits of being a Christian player. You can put almost anything on God or Jesus or whatever, and it's like, well, they're a Christian. That's how it goes. I think he was doing that. He was kind of deflecting any real responsibility in this by saying, like, I put it on God. God's doing the right thing. This is part of his plan. I don't understand it, but I am the one who did it.
that
No, but
prayer's
yeah.
not real, but just something like authentic to like our actual relationship. But it's very him. Like, I guess it didn't surprise me that he said it like that. I guess I was just surprised that he said it at all, that he posted that.
Yeah.
Why do you
as were
think
we
he
all.
posted that?
I would love to know. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know if it was out of just him being so worked up, if it was out of anger, or if it was one of those things where he felt like he needed to do it to really like finally just like put a nail in the coffin. But I have spoken with him since all of that, and I do know that he definitely acknowledges that that was not the
right decision.
the right decision.
Oh,
So we're going to get to that, because I'm just
interesting.
thinking, one,
So they've talked.
was there any part of you on this 12-hour plane ride, one, that wanted to be like, sir, can I borrow your phone? Like, were you, I would have been like just to even see, like, were you worried about what people were saying, or no, you were just still like,
Oh, no, I was worried. It's definitely, yeah, it was one of those things where maybe this ties into my insecurities from the very beginning, but I just felt like there was going to be people like celebrating him breaking up with me. I don't know. I definitely didn't think that, or just like people just sad, just like, oh, like so sorry for you guys, like sad to hear this, but like wishing you both the best moving forward.
I feel like overwhelmingly the nation's reaction to it was in support of Rachael Kirkconnell, and I think many people thought he cheated on her or did something, super nefarious. I don't think the way he broke up with her was great. Obviously, neither did she, but it doesn't seem like there was any cheating or anything like that.
I didn't expect it to be this like people getting mad about the posts like that.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like sitting here and listening to it, I know there's like different steps basically to like grieving a breakup, but I can't help but be mad for you because you guys have been together for 4 years. You've traveled many times together. That man knows that your phone doesn't work on Wi-Fi on long flights.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like when I step back and really look at everything, I'm mad. Like, yes, that's fucked up. Like, he should not have done that to me after 4 years. Yeah. Shouldn't have. Like, he didn't even text me to give me a warning, like saying, like, hey, I'm posting this. So it just hurt to know that, like, that's how my friends found out, and my family, and, like, my little sister.
And the nation.
And that I didn't even, like, get to talk to them about it or just, like, grieve privately for, like, a day, you know? So even, like, landing was just so scary. Just, like, the anxiety that came over me knowing I was, like, about to get service back. And I didn't know what I was about to see. And I just knew my phone was going to be blown up from all my friends and my family and everything. So that hurt.
What happened when you landed? Like, did you get an Uber home? Who did you go to first? Who did you talk to?
I landed and I did have my car at the airport. So I was driving home. And at this point, I think the post went up like 6 a.m. US time or like New York time. So I think I landed at like 6 p.m. So it had been like all day. My friends were waiting to hear from me.
Rachel.
So I got in my car and I just like did a voice memo and just let them know what happened. And I just went home, and by the time I got home it was like 8 or 9 o'clock. So I just went straight to sleep because I was like,
can you imagine, like, her friends and family, maybe not all of them knew that she was on a flight, so they see that post and then they don't hear from her for 12 hours. Who knows what they were thinking could have happened.
Exhausted, and when I'm depressed I just like completely shut down and I just sleep and I don't get out of bed. So I did that.
Did you text him? Like, what the hell? You didn't text him?
No, I just felt like the best thing at the time was just to not talk to him. And because he didn't give me the decency to like give me a heads up or even just give me a few days. Like, it's one thing to, I don't even think you should post a breakup announcement the same day you break up.
No.
But let alone, not even give me a warning that you're doing it.
Yeah, that's the wildest thing of this to me.
I just went home, slept for like what felt like, 48 hours. And then finally woke up to my sister coming in my room. She has a key to my house. So she like let herself in and like woke me up and hung out with me for like the next few days. And then I finally like told my friends I could see them and hang out with them on Saturday. It was the first time I saw some of my friends, just because I just needed just to be by myself for a bit and just not talk about it or think about it. I just wasn't ready to like debrief and like, I think when you talk about it, it just feels more real. So I just wasn't ready to like accept it, I guess.
Brutal. God.
When breakups also happen, I think one of the biggest mind fucks is like you're sitting there, you're laying in your bed, you're so upset, and the one person that you like want to talk to is the person that just hurt you.
Yep.
Who reached out first and like.
Yeah, that was so hard. I completely agree with that, where it's like I'm laying in bed and I want him to comfort me, but he's the one that hurt me. And I'm so mad at him. But I'm also still like so sad. And of course, like I still love him. So yeah, just a lot of emotions to work through. And I woke up at 1 a.m. and I had a missed call from him. This was, I don't know, like 4-5 days after maybe.
God.
In the post. And so I called him back because I just didn't know why he was calling me. I didn't know if he was giving me a heads up about something or if
just a heads up. I'm going to make another post about the breakup.
Needed something or if he was just calling to talk. I didn't know. So I called him back just to see what he wanted. And he just asked how I.
He's like, did you hear TikTok is back up? I know it went down for a couple hours yesterday. It's back up. And so I'm going to do a TikTok about the breakup.
Was doing, which I'm like, how do you think I'm doing? Like what?
Right.
And then, yeah, I confronted him about the post. Said like, that really sucked. And that's when he was like, yeah, I fully admit that I could have handled this a lot better. And he apologized. And, sometimes people, when they're in a really bad state or they're really, really angry or really, really upset, you make mistakes or you don't handle things in the best way you can. But I don't think that, I don't want people thinking that like he's this bad guy or that he's like not, I don't know, considerate of my feelings or whatever, because he is a good guy at the end of the day. But obviously he made a mistake doing that. But I think he knows that. And
She's asking if we can give him grace.
I think he regrets it. So, yeah, it's just hard because I'm like, I probably wouldn't even be sitting here if he didn't do that.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot to like.
So she's thanking him there? She's like, I wouldn't have even wound up on Call Her Daddy if he hadn't made this terrible post that ruined my life.
Process and work through.
Well, no, and I also just want to say, like, this is why social media is so confusing, because on one hand, I agree. It's like, we probably wouldn't be sitting here if he didn't post that. But also it's like knowing that you are going to at one point have to speak. And I think we kind of like were talking about that before this of like, maybe it is nice to just like sit down, and even though it's still so fresh, like I think there's a chance you're going to look back on this interview in a year, even 6 months, and watch some of your responses and be like, oh my gosh, like I didn't see it then. You know what I mean? Like everyone has that, Rachel. Like I've literally done that in every relationship I've ever been in, and so does everyone in the world. Like you are still in this like grieving period, clearly, and you're still even like understandably like the way that you're defending him. I'm not saying he doesn't warrant it. It's actually just like when you're getting out of a relationship, you're still kind of in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like that you were together for 4 years. It's been 2 weeks, 1 week?
Yeah.
Not even
2 weeks. Yeah.
Not even 2 weeks. So it's like, I think a lot of this is, on one hand, there's the part of that me feels bad of like, we're having this so fresh that like, of course you're not going to have like all the answers or the insight or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think hopefully this conversation is going to like alleviate you from, listen, Bachelor Nation is amazing. They're also very intense. And I
Go on.
feel like every single thing you would type would get picked apart. Like there was
Of course.
We talked about this. There wasn't going to be like a perfect.
This was by far the best way to do it. Go on the biggest podcast that you can get on. Call Her Daddy is, at this point, really the most important Bachelor Nation podcast of record. It used to be Happy Hour. That has not been the case in a very long time. No offense to Grocery Store Joe and Serena Pitt. But this is where you go now to do the important kind of Bachelor journalistic, if you're talking about your breakup or you're going to be announced as the next Bachelor, it's where Maria Georges went. Jen Tran was on here. Kamala Harris was on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Perfect Instagram post or caption or comment you could leave that would like leave people feeling like they have an understanding. Not that they deserve it, but they feel like they do because of the way that your guys' relationship started so publicly.
Yeah.
So I think it's this like mixed bag of emotions.
Yeah.
But this is the interesting thing about this. Like, there's a lot of talk about, what do these couples owe the fans? If the relationship was made in the show, do they owe us anything? And the answer is no. But if you continue to use the fame to monetize that fame, and it becomes your job like it has with Matt James, the number next to your head on Instagram is put there by us. We're the ones who are the number. So if you want to keep that number, you have to let us into the life. You have to give us the details, especially about breakups between couples that are forged in the crucible of The Bachelor. The flip side is, if you don't want to deal with any of that, delete your Instagram, make it private, whatever. There are ways around it if you don't want to deal with it, but that also means you don't get the benefit that comes with it. That's the double-edged sword of kind of reality TV and social media fame.
When you were finishing like that call with him, like, where did you guys leave it? Like, what did you say?
We left it like, it's so weird. I was about to say, like, I just wish we could somehow be friends because he was my best friend, and it hurts to not have him as my best friend anymore. But that's like how we left it. Like, we were just talking like everything was okay. I asked him like how his last day was in Tokyo, and like, he filled me in on like what he did.
He was like, Tyler Cameron flew out, we went to some clubs, had some bottles,
and then yeah, we were just talking like, everything was fine, and he ended up falling asleep because I called him back at like 1 a.m. because both of our jet lag was so crazy at the time. And yeah, he ended up like falling asleep, and I just hung up, and that's that.
How long was the conversation?
It was pretty long. It was like over an hour at least.
Did you guys talk about like, are you gonna do no contact for a little bit? Or you?
No, we didn't discuss that. I think like that's something that we probably have to do. We haven't talked a lot. Like, he's called me every like few days just to make sure I'm okay, but I told him that he didn't need to do that. The last time we spoke, I was like, you don't need to like call and check up on me, like I'll be okay. And so that was that. But yeah, I don't know why I don't know if he's feeling bad or if he just wants to see.
The abrupt nature of this breakup has me thinking, is it possible Matt James was offered a certain amount of money to go in paradise? I know that's very conspiratorial, but is it possible? It's just the timing and the abruptness. The calls are going out right now for some players to come on to Paradise, this season 10 that's going to be shot later this year. I don't know.
See where I'm at? I don't know.
In your head right now, like, if you're being really, really honest with yourself, do you think there's any chance you guys ever get back together?
I don't think I can, which is sad. I don't think I can because I think when someone says those things that he said, like, I don't think you're my person, I don't see us getting married, I think that's when you like have to call it quits. And then yeah, just the way that he handled all of this and his posts and everything, like, I forgive him, but I just don't think I can be with someone that I felt like he disrespected me at the end of the day.
He did. 100%.
So, yeah, it's just one of those things where you like have to stand up for yourself even if you don't want to. Like,
wow.
Of course there's part of me that wishes that we could just get back together and pretend none of this ever happened. But yeah, that's not the case. And I think as hard as it is, I think the right decision is to just stand up for myself and
go on Bachelor in Paradise season 10.
Be on my own.
I was going to say, like, I'm so impressed by one, just like how you're handling everything, because I think a lot of people listening right now understandably are gonna like dissect what you've been saying, and they're going to judge certain things you've said. They're going
I'm literally doing it live as I watch the show.
to try to analyze things you've said. I've even been trying to do it. I'm like, oh, I have.
It's a pro sport. I mean, literally, reality TV is a professional sport, and there are commentators like myself, like Lizzie Pace, aka Pace Case, who's a host of Game of Roses as well. Everybody else, Reality Steve, Dave Neal, so many people. It's what we do. We love this. We love reality TV as much as anybody else loves professional sports. And there's an ESPN and there's a CBS Sports. There are so many sports coverage outlets. This is just how reality TV is starting to formulate now. It's starting to become that kind of sports coverage tier where there's so many and it's so intricate and there's so many stats. We're getting there with reality TV now. And that's what this is.
Have an opinion on that and that, but then I'm also like, it's not my life. This is your life. And I also, again, recognize like this is so fresh for you. I do just have to say, in the most painful way, and I don't think the way he did it was right, I do think you're going to look back and you are going to be so fucking grateful that he posted, not how he did it, not the way he did it, but the fact that he did it and put it out there, because I think we all can feel it when there's love and when there's history and when there's not something huge that happened of like cheating or whatever. It's so hard not to go back.
Yeah.
It is easier to go back than to stay away, because it's your comfort. It's the person that you love. It's the person you've cried with. It's the person that you've envisioned.
That's a good point. It's what we call in the Bachelor game a benevolent execution.
And having kids with and a life with and a marriage with and a wedding with and all the best things that come with.
In The Bachelor, in the actual game, that's when a lead goes to a player before the rose ceremony, usually in their hotel room or something, or pulls them aside on a group date or whatever and says, look, this just isn't working. I'm going to send you home now so that you don't have to stand up there at the rose ceremony.
With life, you've pictured it with this person, you've spoken about it with this person. So the fact that you now have to be kind of just cut off from this, I do think it will be a blessing for you, Rachel, that like you will look back and be like, I don't know anyone that maybe would have been as strong if that post didn't go up to not go back. You know what I mean? Because like you said, you're like, I don't know if he did it in the heat of the moment. I couldn't really tell if we were really breaking up in that moment or if he was just angry. Like, you do deserve someone that without a doubt wants to be with you and wants to start a life with you and wants to build
Perhaps Jonathan Johnson on season 10 of Bachelor in Paradise.
a family and all the great things. And you're right, it doesn't make him a bad person, but just from like another woman sitting across from you, like why I said like it will be interesting if you look back on this in 6 months, it's like there are a lot of things you're saying that as a girl sitting across from you, I'm like, babe,
Stand up.
you deserve so much fucking better. And it doesn't mean he has to be then deemed a dick. It's just like objectively, you deserve so much better. Like you annoying him or he not, like all these little things that I know we're only getting like basically 1%. Understandably, you're not going to like share your whole relationship, but like you deserve so much better. And you should not have to feel like you're in doubt. You should not have to feel like you are second to him and like there's a power imbalance. Like you shouldn't have to feel like that. And I know I don't need to like preach to you, but I just want you, I can tell it's hard right now.
No, I mean, yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Like, I definitely have an attachment to him right now. I mean, how can you not when you spend, every day with someone for 4 years straight? And I do love him so much. But yeah, it's just one of those things where maybe in another universe we worked out and things were okay, but it just really sucks to like step back and look at how things ended up for us. It's just like heartbreaking.
I agree. They were relationships that I always really liked out of Bachelor Nation. If for no other reason, I guess, than the odds they had to overcome and the absolute terrible position that the show and the producers put them in, and they were able to get around that and find each other and be with each other, and they just seem like such a strong couple.
But yeah, I just think I do need to just stand up for myself and, you know, tell myself that what he did wasn't okay and that I just need to try and move on.
I also think, like, to everyone listening and even us having this conversation right now, like, I almost started crying when you were like those like children that we envisioned creating together, like, no longer will exist. Like, it's devastating. Like, it's absolutely heartbreaking. But I also think when you get broken up with and you're forced to move forward, I think you're going to have a lot of beautiful reflection, not even on that relationship, but of yourself. Like, even just like in the past almost 2 weeks, like, has there been anything that you looked at where 4 years is a long time? Like, do you think there's any part of yourself that you compromised or you lost within that relationship? Because when you're in a partnership, you do compromise.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think that's something that with time I'll start to realize, but I think like when I have talked to my friends about it, I think that they definitely said like, it just seemed like you were always like giving 110%, but it was difficult for him to like reciprocate it at times. Like it was like pulling teeth to try and get him to come to a wedding with me and just like little things like that. And I love to think I'm this like, you know, like badass independent woman, but I definitely would say that I like compromise my values at times because I felt like that was the right thing to do in the moment.
I mean, she's got a pretty good story coming into BIP. Or Jesus, maybe even make her the Bachelorette. Can you imagine that? That season would be huge.
It was definitely like, you know, he was like not the one in charge or anything, but, you know, he definitely took lead and I just wanted to support him through everything, whatever that was. And I didn't mind, you know, letting him have the spotlight, I guess, if that makes sense. That's poor wording, but
No, I get what you're saying. Like, just to back you up there, like, a lot of what you've shared with me today is like, a lot of it's been on Matt's terms. It's like, if it's good for Matt, then you're being a supportive partner.
yeah.
But at what point is it like, what does Rachel want? And like,
Yeah.
why don't you get to call some of the shots?
Yeah.
And like, what would make you happy? And like, why are you having to beg him to do certain things? And then when he ever wants to do things, you're like, I'm ready to go. Like, I think that's where I can feel it. Every woman in America watching this is going to be like, Rachel, I cannot wait. And I know this is so premature to even be saying, but like, you've said it to your friends before. We've all said it to our friends when they go through a breakup. And because I've lived it and you're about to live it, where it's like, you're going to feel the difference when you meet a guy that is all about you and has no doubts. And it doesn't take away from what you and Matt had, but like, you are, like he said, you are so beautiful and smart and interesting and you're like a great person. I can already tell. We just met and I'm like, you're great. You're
I mean, I don't. After watching this and hearing what is being said right now, I don't think it's a 0% chance that she's a bachelorette. I think that maybe there's a conversation somewhere happening between people who can actually make that decision about this right now. Is she possibly our next bachelorette?
You're great. Someone's going to be so lucky. And that is how you should feel in the relationship, where it's like reciprocal, not.
They'd have to pay her though, like very, very well, because I don't think she is, you know, excited about the prospect of coming back to the franchise. But I think they could get her.
You keeping like, wait for me. Like, wait, what about the like? You deserve that. Everyone deserves that. Again, it doesn't make him a bad person, but maybe this is like the biggest blessing that needed to happen in order for you to finally find that partnership that is 50-50, where you do feel like you have a voice of value and you get to stand up for yourself in moments and be like, hey, no, I don't need to take accountability, because why are we having this conversation? Because you made me upset over this. So you know what I mean? It's like little things that will come, and I'm still working on it and I'm married. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's tough though.
yeah.
Why did you want to speak on this today? I know I've spoken a bunch, but like, why did you want to speak on this today?
I feel like, well,
I feel like I had the opportunity to go on the biggest podcast in the world, and I couldn't say no.
Well, when you reached out to me, I just
When you reached out to me, God, she's good. Oh my God. She sees that and just goes right for it. Come on, call her daddy. And of course, everyone will say yes to that. She's so good.
really thought about it, and I felt like it needed to have a longer conversation than just, you know, a little story or a caption.
Us Weekly article, yeah.
It was just, there was so much to it and a lot to break down, and I wanted to do this for me. I felt like I needed to do it to get some closure with everything. And I did want to do it for, you know, anyone else who cared. Like you said, like we did have a very public relationship, and we did have a lot of people supporting us. And I know at the end of the day, like the only people who really matter in the relationship is you and the other person. But I did just, I saw all these rumors and the speculation and the
She did it for us. She did it for the nation.
theories and all this craziness, and I just wanted to get the true story out there and just share my side of it in case anyone is going through anything similar, or if they just feel lost, confused, blindsided, anything. And if anyone can take something away from this, then, you know, I'm glad I came. But yeah, I just really wanted to do it just to help myself move on and get some closure. And I just feel like after 4 years and after all this craziness, something just needed to be said.
No, I really appreciate you being so open, because I'm aware, like, if we had this interview even in like a year from now, I bet if I asked you these same exact questions, maybe 75% of the answers could be really different.
Yeah.
Which is the beautiful part of life and time, of you just being like, you're in it right now, you're in the grieving stage, and slowly more things are going to become more apparent to you. And I really respect how thoughtful you're being about the way you speak about him. And I think Daddy Gang listening, like, once you go through a breakup, now you get to just fully focus on yourself. And I know that
I am
probably,
excited for that.
yeah, and I know it probably feels weird a little bit because you've been in a partnership where for
Yeah.
4 years it's been like me and him, me and him. But now I think in a fun way, it's like taking this and knowing all the things of how he didn't make you feel good, or when moments where you felt like shit, and then the good.
Yeah.
And basically know like what you want next in a partner. I'm sure there's things that you're like, oh, I have to have that. Matt had that one thing of whether he's funny or whether it's that, and you're going to look for that. But then let's be real, you got a list now of things that you're like, I will not put up with that in my next relationship, as you should.
Yeah.
As you should. Is there anything else, just in terms of whether it was like rumors that you wanted to just like dispel, that you've read that you were like, wait, that's so not true, that you were like, should we just put an end to it?
I'm trying to think. Like, I've seen so much crazy stuff. I try not
The cheating one was the biggest one.
to look, but then when I realized we were doing this, I was like, okay, I definitely just want to see like what is being discussed.
Yep.
And I think the only thing that made me really sad reading was people saying that he cheated, or that I insinuated that he cheated, because he did not cheat. I don't think he ever cheated. I don't think that, you know, at the end of the day, he's at least a good enough guy to be faithful. Like, I never worried about that. And so I just don't want people thinking that he was this like unfaithful guy that, you know, broke my trust or cheated on me or anything. But it's also kind of fun to like tell myself that, you know, I can find myself again and get back to just, you know, loving me and finding my own confidence, because I think it's been missing for 4 years. I'm not saying that's his fault.
Oh,
but
damn.
there was probably a lot of stuff that I needed to work through from the show that I never have. So yeah, I guess in a way I'm just excited to work on myself.
I also will say, just girl advice. Don't let...
Before she gives the girl advice, I would like to say, I agree with what Kirkconnell's saying there. I think if you build a relationship in the show is kind of always a part of your relationship. And if it was a bad experience in the show, which she clearly had, it's like tainted forever. You have to kind of convince yourself at some point that like you've left that in the past and it doesn't really have any bearing on the relationship, but it always kind of does, I think.
Let him keep coming back in. I so know what you mean by you want to be friends, because how can you envision a world not only not him being your friend, but like without him. I get that.
You're gonna make me
No,
cry.
I know. I'm going to cry because we've all been there. It's like, it's unfathomable to be like, Matt's not in my life anymore. But what I will say is like, from experience, I feel like sometimes the person that ends the relationship has the guilt. Like there's guilt that, and he keeps calling you to check in. And unfortunately, it's going to be on you to have to be like, one, he's moving on, right?
Yeah.
But he's also checking in on you.
Yeah.
It's going to prolong you being able to actually be like, okay, I have to cut ties. And
Yeah.
sometimes it does take no contact because it's like, how can you have someone in your life that you did everything with, you loved all of it, and still be cordial while you're trying to move on? I don't think that it doesn't mean you can't in a couple years like see each other out or at a bar and so be cordial and
Yeah.
What about in 5 to 6 months on Bachelor in Paradise season 10?
but I don't think, in my opinion,
Yeah.
I don't think friends, at least in the very beginning,
Yeah.
is going to allow you, if we're being selfish
on.
for you for a minute, to move on.
Yeah.
You got to
No, and that's why I told him, I said, you know, you don't have to call me and check in on me. Like, I'll be okay. Because, yeah, I do agree. I think that, like, even just hearing his voice on the phone, it's just really hard, you know, and it makes me miss him. But
I promise you the best part, and everyone that's gone through this, you know what I'm talking about, is like, you're literally like, no, I literally can't live without him. Like, how is my life going to go on? Like, he's my best friend. He's my everything.
yeah.
And then when you do no contact, all of a sudden, whether you're like at the nail salon one day, or you're walking down the street, or you're at a friend's birthday party, or you're having a wine night with your girls, you're going to like smile to yourself and you're like, oh my God, I haven't thought of him in like weeks. I haven't thought of him, or even if it's days, you know what I mean? Like it's slow wins, but then all of a sudden you move on. So thank you so much for coming
Good
on.
advice.
You are such a sweet person, and I'm really, really, really sorry that this happened to you. But like I said, like, girl, we're getting back out there.
Yeah.
It is only the beginning.
Well, thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Wow. What an interview. It was over 2 hours long. We watched it all. Thank you for watching it with me. I don't think we're going to see Matt James or Rachael Kirkconnell on the sands, the stinging sands of Bachelor in Paradise season 10 later this year. That's just my own fantasy that I'm trying to make happen. But an important interview here. Obviously, one of the biggest maybe that Rachael Kirkconnell will ever do. And we have broken it all down. Very curious to see if Matt James has any rebuttal to this. We will cover it all in This Week in Bachelor Nation coming up on Friday of this week.